everybody, it's Christina from Creations with Christina, and we're going to be working on a project today using our Cricut Expression 2. So let me just zoom in here and I'll show you what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be using one of the cartridges that came preloaded on my machine, so I'm just going to go ahead and select my images icon right here. And I'm going to be using the Just the Note cartridge. So let me just select the Just a Note. And what you do, and I kind of went a little faster, I'm sorry. What you do is you just select the icon down in the bottom. If you had a cartridge in the machine, it would show a little cartridge. Right now it's just the machine, so I'm just going to select the machine. And then from the drop-down menu here, which you have your your 4 cartridges that came loaded on the machine, I'm just going to select the Just a Note. So decided that I'm going to be using this image right here, so I'm just holding down my zoom button and selecting my image, and I'm going to be using this award, or number 1 award image. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it and add all of my layers to this right to the mat at one time. So I'm going to select the main image and then hit the shift lock, select that image. I'll go up to layer 1, turn off the shift lock, select layer 2, and I believe this last layer is a shadow. It doesn't really tell you what it is in the manual, but I'm going to add that to my mat. So now what I'm going to do is just select my little home icon, and this will take me back to my mat. And you'll see now all of my images are added. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my first image. I think I want this to be about maybe 3.5. Let's go with 4. I'm going to do 4 inches. So I've only selected my first image to be 4 inches, and let me just see. I think that'll be pretty good. I want it to be pretty stand up pretty much on the card. So now to make all of the rest of my images come in as 4, I'm just going to go ahead and select my tools icon and just use the little over arrow. And this image right here is your apply all. So I'm going to go ahead and select this to be 4 inches and hit the save. Okay, so now all of my images are on here. The only thing I'm not liking is I want a little bit more of a space in between my top image and the next image down. So I think if I go back over to my image and use the over arrows to get in between my scallop circle that has the 1 and the one that's blank, and hit a return key in there, and we'll drop it down. Well, it didn't drop it down enough, so I'm going to add 2 spaces, and at least maybe I can move it over a little bit. Oh, that's much better. So now I can get all of my images on one mat. So I'm ready to cut this out, and just a second, and I will show you how I loaded my cardstock onto my mat and how we're going to cut it in the machine. Okay, so I kind of changed my mind a little bit. I decided I wasn't going to use the shadow feature. So what I did was I went over to the images, and I added where I had before the return in 2 spaces, I added 2 returns. So that's just one little change I made. So let me just go back to my screen. And now the first thing, and I've had a lot of people ask me how I put my paper on my mat, because it is different than the regular Expression. You have to look at it a little bit different, because before, when you loaded your paper to your cardstock, or to your paper to your mat, you had your mat so that, let me just make sure, your arrows on the side, and then you would load your paper going across the top. And let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. There we go. So in other words, you would have your arrow here, and you would start lining your paper across the top part of this. But now what you do, and if you look right on the screen, you'll see at the top here, there's a arrow right at the top. So you would just go ahead and follow that. So when you're looking at your mat, or your screen here, that's the same way your mat's going to be. So you're going to have your arrow this way, and then you'll go ahead and load your paper from there. So what I did was I picked out a piece of pattern paper that I liked, and I'm going to be making a birthday card for my nephew. So I picked out some pattern paper that I liked, and I'm going to use this pattern paper right here. So I picked colors from this pattern paper to go with my card I'm making, and I have that loaded to my mat. And for the first 2 images right here, I decided I'm going to cut them both out in brown. So what I did was I just cut my cardstock to go with this, and this was roughly about a 5x7 piece of cardstock. And then I cut another piece right here. This will be my scallop circle with the number 1. And then at the bottom here, I did my green piece and my orange piece, even though I only really need a little bit of this. I just put a big piece on it. I didn't feel like cutting. And that will be these 2 images down here. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get my cardstock into my machine, or my mat into my machine. I'm going to hit the cut key. And I'm using so it's a textured cardstock, so I think I'm going to go with the heavyweight just to see what it does, because I did try to cut on a textured cardstock before and it didn't really cut very well, and I don't know if it was because my images were really small or what. So let me zoom out so you can see now as I'm doing the mat and stuff. So I'm going to do that. I have my blade set at 5, which is the highest it can go. I have, or my speed rather, is at 5. So my pressure is at 5 and my multi-cut is at 1. So I'm pretty happy with that. I have my blade set at 6. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut my image. And as soon as that's done loading, we're going to hit the load key. And if you can see, the little light came on. Just note that don't panic if you're using your Gypsy. The light for some reason doesn't come on. So I noticed that. So what we're going to do now is just go ahead and hit the cut. And it's going to make sure you want to check your settings. And we're just going to hit cut. So it's going to go ahead and cut our images. And we'll be back and put our card together. Okay, so we're ready to go ahead and start putting this together. Now you're probably wondering why I cut out both of these pieces in brown, and it's only because I'm going to take this one and layer it so it pops off the top with dimensionals, so it gives it a little extra, look to it. So I'm just going to add some dimensionals to the back, and then I'll go ahead and layer this, right? So this will be the tricky part, is layering those scallops. Maybe if I start down here at the bottom, it'll be a little bit easier. Okay, so there we go. So see, it gave it a little bit of extra dimension just by using the same color, but using pop dots to pop it up. So the next thing you can do is go ahead and start putting this together, and just want to make sure my scallops are layered the right way. And I'm just going to use my ATG gun on the back of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and layer that right onto this. So layer it up really nice. And then I'm going to use my 2-way glue to put my number symbol on. For number 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and layer this right onto my little pendant here. Excuse me, sorry guys. Allergies are working up really good lately. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and layer this. And I just use my ATG gun on the back. Okay, so that's my image. The next thing I need to do is just use my white gel pen to do some stitching lines around my pendant here. Okay, so I finished adding my stitching to my image there. So I'm going to take, first I have a piece of cardstock, and this is just some paper tray ink cardstock, and it's 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored at 4 1/4. And then I have my pattern paper, which measures 3 3/4 by 5. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this right to my card, and I'm keeping this card very simple because it's a birthday card for my nephew, and plus I'm going to be mailing this to him as well, so I didn't want to make anything too bulky to add any extra postage or anything like that when I send it out to him. Alright, so that's the front layer, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put this right in the middle, and I'm just going to use my ATG gun to adhere that down. Oops. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this right in the center of my card. So that looks pretty good. And then the last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add a sentiment to the inside of my card. And I'm going to be using these Think Big stamps from Paper Tray Ink. And I'm just going to use the one that says, "It's your day." So I'm just going to put this on my block. And then I'm going to go ahead and use some Perfect Match. This is the Paper Tray Ink Fresh Snow. And I'm going to use that for the sentiment here. So I'm going to ink this up and then stamp this right on the inside of my card. Okay, so there we go. That's our card for today. Thanks for watching another episode of Creations with Christina. See you next time. Bye.